My name is Camilla Hart, and I'm 28 years old. I work as a structural engineer, a career that keeps me hopping between sites, blueprints, and deadlines that never sleep. My life is exhausting, but I like it that way. The one thing that always kept me grounded, that gave me a sense of permanence, was my home. My little sanctuary, paid for with my own money, full of quiet mornings with coffee and lavender-scented candles. Or so I thought. I had just returned from a grueling 3-week business trip out of state. My body was exhausted, my mind running on 3 hours of airplane sleep, and all I wanted was to collapse onto my sofa and forget the world existed for a while. But as I turned onto my street, my chest dropped. A bright red and white sold sign was planted right in my front lawn. My fingers froze around the steering wheel, my stomach twisting in a way that made me feel nauseous. No, this can't be real, I whispered to myself. I slammed the brakes, the tires squealing, and ran toward my front door, work bag still slung over my shoulder. The familiar scent of home was gone, replaced by the sharp, mechanical smell of packing tape and cardboard. And then I heard the voice that made my blood run cold. Camilla, you're back earlier than I expected. It was Richard, my stepfather, smirking as he neatly packed my belongings into boxes. What is going on, Richard? I demanded, dropping my bag onto the floor. Oh, don't look so surprised, kiddo, he said, using that patronizing tone he always did. We sold it. My heart stopped. We? What do you mean we? He sat down, clapping his hands together like he was preparing for a magic trick. Well, your mother and I decided, you don't really need a house like this, Camilla. It's too big. Too much responsibility for someone your age. Renting a small apartment would be more practical. I felt my fists clench. This is my house. I paid for it. You had no right to sell it. He laughed, a slow, condescending chuckle. You think you did this alone? That you're some self-made success story? Kiddo, that house is family money. Shared assets. You don't actually own anything. I recoiled as if he had slapped me. No, that's not true. I made every mortgage payment. Oh, sweetie, he said, leaning back with a mock sympathy that made my skin crawl. You signed the paperwork years ago. Your mother and I refinanced quietly while you were away. It's all legal. You should really read the fine print. The room spun, my hands shook uncontrollably. Where's Mom? She's in Italy, Richard shrugged, tossing a neatly folded shirt into a box. Needed a little break, but don't worry, she's having a wonderful time. I felt like the floor beneath me had disappeared. So, you sold my house, spent all the money, and left me with what exactly? Oh, don't be so dramatic, he said, patting my cheek like I was a child. You'll figure it out. You're young. You'll thank us later. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. My house, the place that had been mine, had been stolen from me, and there was nothing I could do about it. Or so he thought. I let him leave. I let him board his flight, sip champagne in first class, and imagine he had won. But I wasn't going to break. Not then, not ever. I collapsed onto my empty sofa, my hands trembling. I called my mother. No answer. I tried again, straight to voicemail. On the third attempt, a text appeared. Mom is typing. Finally, her message. Camilla, I don't want to do this over the phone. We'll talk when you're back. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched. She had known. She had known and done nothing. When she finally answered, her voice was calm, detached. Camilla, I really don't appreciate the tone of your messages. I gritted my teeth. You sold my house. Do you have any idea what you did? She sighed. Richard and I talked about this. We think it's for the best. A house like that. It's a lot of responsibility. You barely have time to enjoy it. I laughed bitterly, a low, dark sound. I wanted that responsibility. I earned that house. She waved me off. We found a much better option, a small condo in the city, affordable, low maintenance, much more suitable for you at this stage. I stared at my phone in disbelief. They stole my house and now tried to convince me to settle for a condo? I sank to the floor, my fingers trembling. This wasn't just theft, it was betrayal, and it was personal. Over the next 2 hours, I pored over every document, desperate to find a loophole, something that would give me a chance to fight back. That's when I saw it. The refinancing papers. My name had been quietly removed from the deed months ago. While I was working long hours, out of state, they had stolen my home. Legally, I had been erased. The money was gone. Hundreds of thousands spent on first-class flights, luxury hotels, designer clothes, and exotic trips. My heart twisted in anger and disbelief. And yet, somewhere deep inside me, a cold, sharp clarity began to form. They thought they had won. But I wasn't finished. not by a long shot. The first thing I did was make 2 calls. One to my lawyer, Sam, a brilliant and fiercely loyal man who hated manipulators like Richard. The second to my Uncle David, my mother's older brother, who had always seen through Richard's charm. I would make sure they understood one simple truth. They had underestimated me. Richard had taken everything, but when he returned from Europe, he would find himself utterly alone, stripped of all illusions of control. And I would be waiting. I sat in the emptiness of my living room, staring at the stack of boxes that used to hold my life. Every piece of furniture, every memory packed up and carted away while I was off building my career. My fingers shook as I opened the refinancing documents again, scanning the fine print like my sanity depended on it. And it did. There it was, black and white. Months ago, while I was away, Richard had quietly refinanced the mortgage in his name only. My name had been erased from the deed. Every payment I had made, every painstaking dollar saved, it had all been for nothing. He had done it so cleverly, so quietly, that by the time I noticed, it was already legal in the eyes of the law. I felt bile rising in my throat. My phone vibrated, an incoming call from my mother. I ignored it. I wasn't ready to hear her excuses, not yet. Instead, I opened my banking app. My hands shook as I scrolled through the transactions. My fears were confirmed. A $490,000 deposit from the home sale, immediately followed by withdrawals for hotel bookings, luxury brand purchases, and an international wire transfer. My house, my money, my life. It had been spent. I clenched my jaw. Richard had thought he'd won. He'd flown off to Europe, sipping champagne while I stewed in my own fury. But I wasn't just going to cry over spilled cash. I was going to make him pay. The first call I made was to Sam, my lawyer. I had known him since college. Sharp, meticulous, and someone who hated men like Richard with a quiet, burning intensity. "Camilla," Sam whistled low. "He really screwed you over." "No kidding," I muttered, pacing. "Tell me there's something I can do." "Legally?" Sam's voice darkened. "He had the right to sell the house, yes. But if he falsified documents, forged your signature, or withheld information during the refinancing, then we're looking at fraud." My stomach lurched with both hope and dread. "Can we prove it?" "We'll find out," Sam said. "I'll pull the records. If he committed fraud, we'll drag him to court, freeze his assets, and make his life a nightmare." Next, I called Uncle David, my mother's brother, the one man in the family who had never been fooled by Richard's charm. "You're not going to believe this," I said. David cursed under his breath. "That manipulator, he stole your house?" I nodded, my voice shaking. "And he used Mom's credit to refinance without telling anyone." David laughed, but it was sharp, dangerous. "That's the kind of mistake that'll ruin him if we dig deep enough. Tell me what you need." Richard had left loose ends, and I intended to pull every one of them. David had access to all of Richard's accounting records. Sam had the legal expertise. Together, they would uncover everything hidden behind his smug European getaway. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet, careful not to alert him that I was onto him. Let him sip his overpriced wine in Paris. Let him imagine victory. The fall was coming, and he had no idea it was mine to deliver. My boyfriend, Evan, had noticed my absence in communication. He knew something was wrong. When he called, I let him sit with me quietly, listening, while I processed the betrayal. I didn't yet tell him all the details. I just needed him close as a tether to reality, a reminder that I wasn't alone, even if my own mother and stepfather had turned against me. For 2 weeks, I kept my head down, letting Sam and David work. Every piece of evidence they uncovered fueled the cold, meticulous plan forming in my mind. I visualized Richard returning home, smug and confident, only to find his carefully constructed world unraveling piece by piece. And then, 3 days before he was set to land back in the country, the first breakthrough came. Sam called. "Bingo," he said. "He committed mortgage fraud, forged your signature on the refinancing. The entire sale, illegal." My chest tightened with a thrill of righteous satisfaction. "Let's bring him down," I said, voice steady but low, like a storm waiting to break. An hour later, David called. "You're going to love this. I found undisclosed income in his tax filings, hundreds of thousands in unreported cash. If we play this right, he'll face a serious audit." A slow, cold smile crept across my face. Let him enjoy his European tour. Let him imagine he had gotten away with it. When he returned, he would find a meticulously prepared trap waiting. I made no move to confront my mother. She didn't deserve the satisfaction of knowing I was onto her too. I let her think I was broken, devastated, powerless. Meanwhile, every call to Sam and David tightened the net around Richard. The house was gone, the money spent. But Richard's world? That would crumble. And I would be there to watch, quietly, as it did. Richard's flight landed late Sunday afternoon. I parked across the street from his house, hidden in the shadows, and waited. My stomach was tense, but my mind was sharp, like a hawk ready to strike. He had spent weeks gloating in Europe, believing he had outsmarted everyone. He had no idea the trap was already set. At 4:37 p.m., a sleek black SUV rolled up the driveway. Out stepped Richard, dressed in a designer coat, hair perfectly slicked, face smug. He rolled his suitcase behind him, humming a tune I'd once despised because it was the same one he sang when he thought he was winning. He approached the front door, punching in the code. Nothing happened. Frowning, he tried again. The door remained firmly locked. His brow furrowed, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. And then the door opened, revealing my mother. She did not look happy. "Linda, what's going on? Why won't the code work?" he demanded, irritation lacing his voice. "I think we need to talk," she said, arms crossed, voice trembling with a controlled fury. Richard stepped forward, trying to push past her, but she blocked him. "Not out here," she snapped. "Inside, now." He tried to reason, but then his phone rang. The change on his face was instantaneous. Shock, disbelief, panic. He barked into the receiver, and I knew immediately it was the IRS. David's investigation had done its work. The audit was live. His tax fraud exposed. I stayed hidden, watching the meltdown. The man who had laughed at me, belittled me, stolen my home, he was unraveling before my eyes. My mother hung up the phone and shook, muttering, "I can't believe this." Richard turned to her, voice rising. "What did you do? This isn't happening. I don't understand." I let myself smile quietly in the car. Patience. Let him panic. Let him realize that for every action, there is a consequence. Later that evening, my mother called me, her voice strained, shaky. "Camilla, you need to understand. Richard, he's in trouble. He has nowhere to go." I leaned back in the car seat, a calm smirk on my face. "Oh, and why would that be?" She tried to explain, stumbled over her words, flailing for excuses. We just thought maybe you could help." I let the silence stretch, letting every word sink in. Then I spoke slowly, deliberately. "You mean the same child who wasn't ready for the responsibility of owning a house? The same child you and Richard stole from? You expect me to fix this?" There was a pause, her voice cracked. We made a mistake." "Yes, you did," I said softly, letting the weight of those words settle. The next day, I received updates from David, like front row tickets to Richard's collapse. He tried to withdraw money from his accounts. Frozen. He called his tax accountant. Blocked. He attempted to enter the house. Locked out by my mother. The man who once controlled everyone around him now slept in a cheap motel, humiliated and powerless. And then came the knock at my door. It was late, 11:47 p.m. I checked the peephole. Richard. Disheveled, wrinkled suit, bloodshot eyes, the smugness gone, replaced by desperation. I opened the door just enough to lean against the frame. "Camilla, listen." I cut him off. My voice was sharp, cold. "Whatever you're about to ask, no." He tried again, voice trembling. I need a place to stay. Just a little time." I laughed quietly, a sound that cut like glass. "This isn't your home anymore." His face twisted with anger, shame, desperation, all at once. He stuttered, searching for words that wouldn't come. "You selfish child," he spat, but the words rang hollow. I stepped back and slammed the door. His fists pounded against it, the sound echoing in the quiet night. But I didn't move. I didn't flinch. He was done. I went inside, grabbed a drink, and settled into my sofa. Calm, patient, watching the storm I had set in motion take its course. Richard had underestimated me. He had thought that taking everything would break me. He had no idea that losing my house had only sharpened my focus, hardened my resolve, and awakened a side of me he would regret ever provoking. The fall had begun, and there was no one to catch him. The pounding at the door continued, growing more desperate, more unhinged with every second. Richard's voice, once commanding and smug, now quavered with panic. "Camilla, you arrogant, let me in! You think this is funny?" I sipped my drink slowly, watching shadows flicker across the walls. Calm, unbothered. He was wasting energy screaming at a locked door while the IRS, the courts, and his own poor decisions closed in on him. I called 911. My voice was casual, almost bored. Yes, there's a man outside my home trying to break in. He's threatening me. I gave my address, then leaned back, taking another sip. Through the window, I watched him stagger, confused, realizing he was only minutes away from being arrested. Then he ran. He disappeared down the street like the frightened, desperate man he had become. That was the last time I saw him in person. The following weeks were almost poetic. The IRS audit went through, uncovering years of unreported income, overseas accounts, and tax evasion. Sam filed civil lawsuits for the mortgage fraud. My mother, terrified of being dragged down with Richard, filed for divorce, froze their shared accounts, and retained her own counsel. Richard tried to flee the country. He booked flights, packed bags, and imagined escape. But the authorities had already flagged his passport. He was arrested at the airport, humiliated and powerless. And I walked away, not just with some of the settlement money, but with freedom. My house was gone, yes, but between legal victories and damages, I had enough to rebuild without relying on anyone else. I had no debts, no manipulative family members, no invisible strings pulling me down. My mother sent texts and left voicemails, apologies spilling across her digital voice. I didn't respond. I realized she had never truly been on my side. Until it was convenient, until Richard's empire was crumbling, she had stood by him. I had been collateral damage, no more. Now I sleep in a home I control, a life I built on my own terms. My bank account has a substantial cushion thanks to the legal battles, but more importantly, my sense of self-worth and independence has been restored. Sometimes I think of Richard, lying awake in a prison cell, wondering where it all went wrong. And I smile, because I survived. I reclaimed my power, and for the first time in my life, I am untouchable. The house may have been gone, but I had taken everything that truly mattered: my dignity, my future, and my freedom. And that, in the end, was the sweetest revenge of all.